Laura. Thank you for getting everybody on board. When you came into the Greenfield Village today, you entered into over 300 years of American history. It was the dream that Henry Ford had. He wanted a place for people to come and see what those who lived long before us made with their hands and used with their hands. He wanted everyone to be inspired. I hope that happens to you today. The Greenfield Village is divided into 7 different districts, and the very first one is the Henry Ford Model T. Look over to your left, you're going to see a white farmhouse. It was from Dearborn Township, built in 1861. It happens to be the birthplace of Henry Ford. He was born on July 30th, 1863 on the 2nd floor of that farmhouse, the oldest of 5 children. After stopping there and learning more about his early life, stop over at the Ford Motor Company and learn how he came up with the vision of a motorcycle back in 1908, the Model T. And there you could see the 50 million Model T produced in 1927. And then take a ride on one of our Model T cars. Our next district takes us into Main Street. Here we have the home of the Wright brothers and the Wright Brothers Cycle Shop from Dayton, Ohio. We call it the birthplace of aviation. We also have Mrs. Cohen's Millinery Shop, where our staff who have made some wonderful hats like she did back in the 1880s have them for purchase. Down the street is the Herschel's Pullman Carousel, built in 1913 in California, New York.
That's the house they
And the
lived in as
statue
well.
of Thomas Edison takes us into Thomas's at Work district. In front of us is the Menlo Park complex from New Jersey. Way over to the left is the machine shop. In front of us, the 2-story structure. It's upstairs that we have the laboratory where he came up with the inventions of the incandescent light bulb, the phonograph, improving on the telephone and the telegraph. He received over 420 patents while working here. One patent he regrets not getting is back for the Industrial Research Laboratory, which was the very first one of its kind. And single men that worked for him, they would rent a room over at Sarah Jordan's boarding house. It's that yellow house you see there. It made history in 1879. At his Fort Myers laboratory from 1880s until 1931. Now we come into our porches and parlors district. And what a beautiful way to come in is through the Ackley Covered Bridge that was built in 1832 from Pennsylvania. Here we have the home of Robert Frost, the poet. Also, Noah Webster. He's the person who came up with the American Dictionary of the English Language back in 1828. And way in the far back, we have the Cotswold Cottage. It's the only structure here that's not from the USA. Henry Ford purchased it for his dear wife, Clara. It comes from Chethworth, England, and it was built in 1619. You do want to stop over there and take a look. We are now coming into the Susquehanna station. Please remain seated. The engineer will set a brake and give us the sound of a single whistle that's going to let us know it's safe to come off the train. Should you be deboarding, you're going to exit to your left side. We're only here for 4 minutes before we move on to Smiths Creek. Say hello to Jeff, our station master. We're going to say goodbye to Jeff. Thank you, Jeff, for getting us out on time. Appreciate it. Here at the white farmhouse that you see there is the Susquehanna. It was part of a plantation that was 700 acres big back in the day. From St. Mary's County, Maryland, built in 1854 before the Civil War. The Carroll family owned this plantation. Tobacco was the cash crop. They also owned 65 African Americans who they enslaved to work the plantation. Go inside and listen to the hardships that they endured. Next, we have the oldest American home that we have here at Greenfield Village. It's the Plimpton family home from Sudbury, Massachusetts, built in the early 1700s. And we have the Ferris windmill that was built in 1650 from Cape Cod, Massachusetts. It's the oldest standing windmill in the United States. And the Daggett family farmhouse from Andover, Connecticut, built in 1754 before the American Revolutionary War. Samuel Daggett built that house and has its own leading influence. Over to the left is a pasture that we have for our Percheron draft horses. They're getting a little rest and relaxation over here after pulling wagons and plows around the village and the fields. The locomotive that's pulling our train today is called the Edison. Initially built in 1870, when Henry Ford found it, it was in such bad shape he took it to the Ford Rouge plant and had it completely rebuilt. When it was finished in 1932, he named it Edison after his dear friend Thomas Edison, who passed away in 1931. We also have two other steam locomotives that we use here at the Greenfield Village. We have the Torch Lake, which was built in 1873, made by the Mason Machine Works Company. It happens to be the oldest running steam locomotive on a regular schedule. And we have the Baldwin number 7. It was built in 1897. Henry Ford owned the Detroit-Toledo-Ironton Railway back in the 1920s. When he sold it, he kept that locomotive for his personal use. Steam locomotives function on just coal and water. Coal is fed into a firebox where the temperatures increasingly get hotter. It heats the water in the boiler to a point where it creates steam. Steam then moves through a pipe that eventually moves through pistons and move the wheels. That's essentially how a steam locomotive works. We are now entering into our wildlife preserve. Now what you just saw and heard is a blowdown. The engineer is just releasing some steam in hopes of getting some of the debris out of the boiler that collects over time. No plants or animals are harmed by that. Speaking of animals, in our wildlife preserve we might have some white-tailed deer, rabbits, red foxes, porcupines, and wild turkey. Of American Innovation is a non-profit educational organization. It does not get any funding from the Ford Motor Company or from the Ford Foundation. Instead, it relies on ticket sales from people like you who come to visit the museum or the village. We certainly appreciate your support and hope that you are having a wonderful time here at the Greenfield Village today. In front of us is our Walnut Grove area. Nothing says baseball than a summertime sitting in the field and watching a baseball game. We show baseball played like that according to the 1867 rule book. Our players dressed in period clothing from that time will play against other Midwestern teams. Our teams are called the Nationals and the Latidas. They do not use gloves. They catch the fly balls with their bare hands. Only the weak use a glove. If you look up over to the left and up the hill, you'll see the backside of the Cotswold Cottage, built in 1619, a gift to Clara Ford from her husband, Henry. Next to that, the gray structure up there is the Giddings family home. Giddings was a doctor, and he also was a merchant and traded in the West Indies. That home was built in 1751 from Exeter, New Hampshire. And next to that is backside of the Noah Webster's house from New Haven, Connecticut. And then we have Robert Frost's home. In front of us is the Henry Ford Academy High School that was built in 1997. It's a charter school that specializes in the STEAM program: science, technology, engineering, art, and math. We have over 500 students in attendance this year, 9th graders over at the museum, and sit down please. Ladies, sit down, thank you. Train safety first. Now we can wait from our seats. To our students here, Henry Ford believed that learning to do is by doing. These students can take what they studied in the classroom and then go to the village or museum and see at firsthand what they studied. These vintage Pullman cars were converted into classrooms. This is a place for the privileged seniors to have their classes. And to be a student here, one must live in Wayne County, Michigan, after submitting an application in which are able to attend high school here 4 years, and it's all tuition free. And we have the Swanee Lagoon to our left there. It helps to mitigate any flooding that we may get. If you look over to your left and up the hill, you're going to see a continuation of our Main Street district. That's our village green up there. We have the chapel that Henry Ford built in honor of his mother-in-law, Martha Bryant and Mary Ford, his mother. Next to that is a one-room schoolhouse, the Scotch Settlement School, where young Henry Ford attended from Dearborn Township. And then we have Logan County Courthouse built in 1840 from Coatesville, Illinois, where young Abraham Lincoln practiced law on those very footboards. J.R. Jones's General Store is here too. It was the first structure that was brought here when Henry Ford began building the Greenfield Village. Next to us is the Taste of History restaurant. They will only be serving hot meals for the next 20 minutes. After that, it'll just be snacks and beverages. And next to that is our Eagle Tavern restaurant that comes to us from Clinton Township. It was, when you walk into those doors, you walk into 1850 with waitstaff dressed in period clothing and handing you a menu from that time period. They will only be serving hot meals up until 3 o'clock today. We are now coming into the Smiths Creek station. Please remain seated. The engineer will set a brake and give us the sound of a single whistle, letting us know it's safe to come off the train. And should you be exiting, you will exit to your left side. We're here for only 4 minutes before we head out to the Firestone Station, which happens to be the entrance to the Greenfield Village. Say hello to Gordon, our station master, as we pull in. Once again, I want to remind you to stay seated until you hear that whistle. We'll say goodbye to Gordon, our station master, and Mary Ann, our conductor. Thank you so much. Appreciate your help. We are in Railroad Junction right now, and the Smiths Creek Station depot you see on your left was built in 1858 for the Grand Trunk Railway that came through it, the town. Henry Ford brought it here in 1928 because he learned it had a young Thomas Edison connection. Going inside, right outside the door there is Norm, our presenter, and he'll tell you more about the story of a life of a station master and also the young Thomas Edison connection. Across the streets are Edison Illuminating Power Plant. Henry Ford had his very first professional job as chief steam engineer here. Across the way is our open marketplace, the Detroit Central Market, built in 1860. We just dedicated it a year ago, and it'll be the place for a lot of activities throughout the season here at Greenfield Village. And in front of us, yes, there's an old friend, Thomas the Tank Engine. He will be carrying passengers around Saturdays and Sundays for the next 3 weeks. He's right now visiting our Detroit, Toledo, Milwaukee roundhouse. It was built in year 2000. It's made to look like one from Marshall, Michigan in 1884. So this will be his home for the next 3 weeks. Thomas also is a steam locomotive. And steam locomotives needed a place for regular maintenance, and the roundhouse was the place that they would go. In front of it is the Pierre Marquette turntable built in 1901. That's how we get locomotives in and out of the roundhouse. Our next district takes us into Liberty Craft Works, where we have artisans working on glass blowing, pottery making, weaving, and a printing shop. They're using the same tools and skills that they would have used back in that time. We also have the Edison Gallery of glass pieces from the 1700s to modern day on display. And we also have the Laranger grist mill, the Gun-Soley carving mill, and the trim sawmill, which were all made in the 1800s. Now we're entering into our working farm area. You can enjoy the sight, sounds, and smells of a real working farm. We show it like that of 1885, and our staff dressed in period clothing are safety, sir. Javi Firestone was born in that home that was built in 1828 from Columbiana, Ohio. Here we have cows, as you see in the field. We also have horses, chickens, and sheep over at the barn. If you get a chance to walk down and visit our barn and visit the staff that are working in the farmhouse. We are now coming into the Firestone station. Please remain seated. The engineer will set a brake and give us the sound of a single whistle, letting us know it is safe to come off the train. You will exit to your right side at the station. We're here for about 8 minutes before we move on. If you're not sure where to head out next, I highly recommend a short walk across the tracks over to the left through the covered bridge and stop over at our Liberty Craft Works. See what our artisans are working on at this time. Once again, I remind you to stay seated.
Okay.
Wait for the whistle. Now it's